public unveiling at which, it's got to say, Haaland looked amazing, sounded very Haaland, trying to say as little as possible, even for his own team in the safest PR setting of all time, but then dropped a gem where he said, sometimes I look at someone posing with a trophy and think, oh, I'd love to be you right now. And it wasn't clear to me, Davo, whether Haaland wanted to be the player or the trophy.
He could probably be both. He's going to get a statue, so that's sort of like a trophy at some point.
Oh, I can imagine Haaland would love to be a trophy given the choice.
Okay, Rog, to even more football. We've already mentioned Washington, D.C. up top, and the biggest news this week also comes from that city of southern efficiency and northern charm, which would be a compliment in England. The big news, Wayne Rooney is returning to America and MLS to manage DC United. Your other partner in pod is coming home, Rog.
Wayne, back in the USA. He's back in our loving arms, poised to return as DC United's new coach. A multi-year deal reported by the Washington Post worth at least $1 million annually. Highest coaching salary in DC United's franchise history. I've been told it's an 18-month contract, and should be said, DC United are experiencing a turbulent season, as they were really when Wayne arrived as a player back in 2018. In the last game, they were drubbed 7-0 by Philadelphia, and I started to hear about the possibility about Wayne returning. Right after that, I was told there was a 20% chance of that happening, 1 in 5. Wayne loves those kind of odds. In walks Wayne at Dulles Airport with 4 huge bags. Not really the kind of look you have if you're just here for the weekend. And it turns out to be true. He will take over DC, who have 17 points, tied with Chicago for the fewest in the league. Wazza loves a charity case. Should have come to Everton. I honestly think Wayne's just over the promotion relegation thing, right, Davo? But the big question is, why has he come back? You know, he did so bloody well at Derby, an admirable job in unbelievable conditions, not just a lack of funding, constant rumours of takeover, but he almost defied a 21-point reduction, created a genuine hope of survival. That was incredible. His team would have finished 14 points clear of relegation if they hadn't been penalised. But many English journalists are wondering, what is he doing in America, Davo? Craig Hope in the Daily Mail wrote this: his stock is high, enough to do better than the cosy surrounds of what others consider a semi-retirement home. How do you understand it?
The irony there, Rog, is that English journalists are asking the question as to why on earth he would go and do that, where the answer almost certainly is English journalists. Wayne Rooney wants to advance his career. He clearly is taking this coaching lark pretty seriously. English journalists, guffawed at the idea of Wayne Rooney as a coach when he first took the reins at Derby County. He's clearly very good at it. I'm sure there were other offers coming in for him in the Championship. But the US is a place, and he's said this to you before, Rog, a lot. He can be somewhat anonymous. He can focus on building his career and probably learn something and improve and go back, perhaps, for a Premier League job, for an even bigger job. So it makes sense to me, certainly with how happy he was when he lived in DC and was in the US.
I love that he's coming back to America. I love that he's coming back to DC. He adored his 2 seasons in Washington. On the field, it made him feel alive again. Off it, as you say, he loved that anonymity that DC gave him that England never does. And yes, there is a pathway, which is just wait for a Brighton, wait for a kind of Palace or Everton job or a Middlesbrough job to open up, that kind of a calibre. Wayne is not the kind of person who likes to wait. He is a gentleman who needs to keep working. He needs to focus. He needs to get out of bed in the morning and have a mission. And he gives DC, who have had a floundering campaign, instant energy. This is really a win-win. I can actually see Wayne being the Billy Martin of MLS, just constantly coming back to DC. Not just once, but twice, repeatedly through his managerial career in short bursts. He'll be here, do his thing. I think he'll be fantastic at DC, and then, he'll get a job in England, go back there, then come back here for a third time. When Kai joins the academy, there'll be a fourth. When Ozil signs, he'll play a manager again in that spell, I think. And then his fifth coaching spell at DC United will end in a championship. Wayne bringing over a 42-year-old Harry Kane, who's going to Bo Jackson it. He'll win MLS Golden Boot while blasting 70-yard field goals for the Washington Commanders at the same time. Davo, that's the one I can't wait for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fascinating to watch what happens. See if he can turn it around in DC. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Our friend, the old goat, suggested over Twitter that DC United officially change their name to the DC Wazzers. Gotta say, I'm all for it.
Okay, Rog, now to the 5-week social media film festival that has been the transfer window, starting with news about a player who normally shies away from the spotlight and prefers to toil silently and thanklessly in the background. Cristiano Ronaldo, Rog, such a man who shirks from the mainstream media. What is the latest in the Ronaldo Man United saga, Rog?
Cristiano Ronaldo has told Manchester United that he wants to leave because he doesn't believe the club can win the Premier League next season, and he wants to play Champions League football. He's refused to travel with Manchester United to Thailand. They played Liverpool today, won 4-0. He said the excuse is he's got a family issue. I think the family issue is not wanting to play again for Manchester United. Chris Armas, it's all your fault. His team's failure to qualify for the Champions League triggered a reported 25% reduction on player salaries, which sources close to Cristiano Ronaldo say has, quote, upset the player. Do you know why, Davo? Because his basic weekly wage for next season has now dropped to $424,000. How can a man live off that?
Ugh, I know. Pittance. A pittance.
A fact which makes a mockery of all those who claim that he loves the club. It's special to him, as does the fact that he really announced this so bloody late, reportedly just after a large loyalty payment had contractually been activated. What a hot mess for United to open up the Ten Hag era, David.
Yeah, definitely, but it's been a mess ever since they brought him in. I mean, what one would like to think is that all of this, or at least a large part of it, is connected to Cristiano Ronaldo's desire to play Champions League football, which is because he is an incredible competitor. He does have an amazing record on every single level of the club, domestic, European, international, for club and country. But it's just a huge distraction as Man United kick off on their pre-season schedule in a season that one feels is going to be very important for them.
Those who adore Cristiano Ronaldo will say this is devastating for United. They haven't won a single game without him since he rejoined. But then you look at the statistics, and in 2020-21, United scored 73 goals. With Ronaldo, it dropped to 57. Exactly the same thing that happened to Juventus. Ronaldo gets a boatload of goals, but the collective output of any team he plays on drops despite them. And really, for me, the killer stat is the coach killer stat, the symbol of the instability of a gent who is probably the only man who saw that first full colour image from the James Webb Space Telescope showcasing thousands of stars, thousands of galaxies, and just looked at it and thought, wow, that looks just like my face when I look in the mirror. What his brand brings to an elite locker room is this. Since the start of 2020, Ronaldo has had 6 club managers, and the brutal part for United, as I said, is really the timing. Erik ten Hag is left, caught in the middle, and I don't know how this has blown up so far after the Dutchman signed on. Really feels like a punch Ten Hag didn't need, probably didn't see coming. He'd been briefing the press that he wanted to keep Ronaldo, and that's kind of blown up in his face, which leads to the question, where will he go, Davo? Yes, this man who will get your team 20 goals, but will make them worse in the process, tactically, collectively, beneath the hype, the insta-post, the signature great looks. To serve one player, you have to surrender so much to the collective impact. What serious elite team would want him, bar the branding? Who would really want to buy 20 goals while making their team 80% crapper?
That's why I've been terrified to read the reports of Chelsea being interested in bringing him over, frankly. But it's a legitimate question.
His agents are briefing the press that he'll take a pay cut in order to go to a Champions League team. They're saying he wants the legacy that much, but it is an odd reality. Chelsea constantly linked. Bayern have Mane. Inter and Napoli are cash strapped. I mean, he's really in LAFC territory in terms of his career progression. But Boehly and Chelsea, David, we are going to talk about them more in a moment, but Boehly linked first to Neymar, then to Ronaldo, and I can't tell if this is just agents connecting themselves to the club and Boehly, but it really is a test of who he is and whether he's going to fall for the same hype as the Glazers. How do you understand it?
I mean, very similarly to you, I don't know exactly what to make of it. It's a good story. Agents putting out his name everywhere. They know he's got money. They know that to some extent the media are going to report it immediately, that he meets with them, partly because there's a sense of like, oh my God, how much can we take the new guy for? But he appears, certainly in terms of how he's, almost not put a step wrong in terms of his club ownership so far and in terms of his track record with the Dodgers. I'd be surprised if he's just going to star hunt. I would be disappointed if he just star hunts also, I must say. I think that Chelsea need to get back to what they've done really well, unearthing, some of the great players that have come to Chelsea and performed have been, jewels that they've unearthed. I'd love to get back to, that era of Chelsea transfer business.
One headline kind of sums up what you've just described. Thomas Tuchel must resist new Chelsea boss Boehly's desire to reach for the stars. Piece in The Guardian by Jonathan Wilson, who wrote that as the owner of the baseball franchise LA Dodgers, Boehly has favoured signing big names, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, and it's largely worked. But baseball is so very different to football. One great individual can make a huge difference to a side, and other than the player he replaces doesn't really make much difference to anybody else. So upgrade a spot in the squad and you upgrade the team. But this is, as you say, Davo, really an early test of Chelsea's new owners. But in terms of United, to button them, Christian Eriksen heavily tipped to sign imminently, which would bring in some competition for Bruno, add some true intelligence to that midfield. But to watch all this Ronaldo embarrassment, this flailing piece of skin, is doubly painful for United fans when City have had the summer of their dreams. Did you watch him unveil Erling Haaland in the most Real Madrid-esque way yesterday?
Yeah, that was full-on entertainment, Rog.
Public unveiling at which, it's got to say, Haaland looked amazing, sounded very Haaland, trying to say as little as possible, even for his own team in the safest PR setting of all time, but then dropped a gem where he said, sometimes I look at someone posing with a trophy and think, oh, I'd love to be you right now. And it wasn't clear to me, Davo, whether Haaland wanted to be the player or the trophy.
He could probably be both. He's going to get a statue, so that's sort of like a trophy at some point.
Oh, I can imagine Haaland would love to be a trophy given the choice between the two. But let's talk about Chelsea.
A lot is happening under new American owner and HBIC head Boehly in charge, Todd Boehly. A lot of reports that we are on the verge of securing the services of Raz, but also some troubling reports about the culture of the club to contend with.
Truly awful stories breaking while I was away about the bullying culture in the front office of Chelsea, a toxic environment that led reportedly to the suicide of a staff member. Todd Boehly has vowed to make it his first job to clear it up. It's honestly hard to read the reports, which broke, I think, in the New York Times. Football we think of as bringing us such joy, and behind the scenes it can often be a heart of darkness. And I have to say, well done to Boehly for vowing to unfurl a full investigation, appointing an external review team and declaring he wants to build a culture built on transparency, accountability, inclusivity, diversity and opportunity in the workplace. God, Davo, may that be so.
Yeah, absolutely. In the it was the culture apparently in the marketing department that a man who took his own life terribly, regrettably, ran the television channel at Chelsea. It's just a reminder that these clubs are much larger than just the playing staffs and the youth programs and those kind of things. There are just enormous businesses at this point, and they require sound management up and down and across the entire enterprise.
In other happier Chelsea news, Raheem Sterling at $60 million will be reportedly the first marquee signing under new ownership. And we talked a lot in our last podcast about what Raheem Sterling will bring to Chelsea from a footballing perspective. What a player. City have won 29 major trophies in their history, 12 of them while Raz was there. I think 4 of their 8 league titles, 5 of their 8 league cups, 1 FA Cup. Huge player for Manchester City. Huge player for Pep Guardiola as a manager. In the totality of his career. And it's going to be fascinating to see how a new scene, how a new leadership gives Raz new energy or not. But off the field, Davo, there is something really beautiful about the signing. In December 2018, it was at Stamford Bridge where Raheem Sterling was racially abused as City lost 2-0, an incident which really changed his sense of self, his whole being. It led to a Chelsea fan being banned for life, but it was really a remarkable moment in Sterling's career. It was the moment he stopped taking the media's constant bashing and the implicit racism that propelled it. Stopped just taking anything that fans wanted to throw at him as a norm. This was really the moment he began to speak out so bravely, so bloody intelligently, where he became really not just a footballer, but a national icon willing to challenge the darkness of British history, culture, and what passed then as just norms. And to think about Raz returning to Stamford Bridge now, not just as a visiting player, but to pull on your Chelsea shirt, Davo, there's something truly beautiful, poetic, seismic about this moment.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think the first time we spoke about it on the pod, I mentioned immediately, I thought of that awful moment that took place at that home game against Manchester City. And I think he'll be welcomed to the club by the fans with open arms. He's a true professional. I think this is a very good piece of business. I'm very optimistic about it. And I know that the stats, because everybody looks at stats and performance stats, are very flattering to Raz. Obviously, he's been playing in a very good Manchester City side, but I think he's still got a lot to give as a Premier League player and an international footballer as well.
A lot of paper talk still connected to Chelsea, who are said to be willing to listen to offers on a whole host of players, including Werner, Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi. And if you, like me, like to read too much into jersey launch videos, looks like Pulisic could be staying, Dave. Just judging from the fact that he's in it, doing a little dance too. Smashed it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believed he was ever going. I think this has really become a headline bait at this point. Anything regarding Christian Pulisic, leaving Chelsea. I'm delighted also that it looks like he's staying. I think that's great for Chelsea and great for the player. So, they really need some help. I mean, of course, always the attention goes to the front players. Where Chelsea really need the help is at the back. They've said goodbye to a couple of half-decent centre-backs to Spain. So I'd love to see them do some more transfer business at the back.
Oh, we're Gabriel Slanina's team now, as reports imminently surround the 18-year-old Addison, Illinois, Chicago Fire goalkeeper's move to Chelsea. You got nothing to worry about, David.
Yeah, but I think he'll be loaned back for a while.
I did tweet out yesterday that would make it Chelsea 2, Leeds United 2 in terms of American players, and got howling screams of, "That's Matt Miazga erasure" from dozens of Chelsea fans, which I just love.
Yeah, you can't erase Matt Miazga. He could be coming home, Rog. He could be coming back. Okay, enough of the slot jockeys pumping quarters into their machines, hoping for a transfer window jackpot. Let's head into the VIP room where Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool have just secured Mo Salah and his ever-expanding 8-pack. I believe it's a 10-pack now, Rog, thanks to a new contract.
A very early end to an incredibly shrewd transfer window for Liverpool. Many fans panicked when transfer guru Michael Edwards left. But huge respect to Julian Ward, his replacement, should be commended on the evidence of this window, which ends with magical news for Liverpool fans. Mo Salah has finally recommitted his future to Liverpool, signed a new 3-year contract that makes him the highest paid player in the club's history, with a reported $500,000 a week in what was hailed by the club as, quote, a happy day for everyone. Everyone clearly not including Everton fans. That is a lot of money for a 30-year-old, but one who honestly seems to be fitter and fitter with every season. And you look at FSG, with the Red Sox, they've always sought to avoid that big contract to the aging player. And there is the precedent of Aubameyang, that kind of Uber-star risk at Arsenal, that contract, massive contract at a massive age and a declining asset. But how do you see it, David?
They had to re-sign him. And I think, once again, great for the club, great for the player. He is such an intelligent footballer, despite his beguiling speed and skill set. You can't really see anything going wrong with him for a few more years. And I think the fact that he doesn't play on an elite international team with respect to Egypt, they're not going to the World Cup. They're not, involved in sort of such intense football as the European nations. I think it's good. He's got a lot more years left in him.
Footballers and their health regimes now, it's almost like 30 is the new 20. And you look at Mo as a finisher, he can score so many different kinds of goals. He can hurt teams in so many different ways. He's the kind of player that will only adapt as he ages. Little like LeBron, changing his game, his elite game, to work out how to constantly play to his strengths, maintain his output. I actually think this is a double win for Liverpool Football Club. Mo stays, and the distraction of Mo stay or go has now been muted. And I'm trying to bright side it. There isn't much bright side for Everton fans, other than I'll just say, I for one am just glad that it's not Origi. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos. And courage.